Welcome to Coach Taylor's Honors Geometry class notes. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to review and make sure that we know what our square roots are, and we're also going to talk a little bit about our cubed roots. These are things that as you get up to the higher levels in math, these are things you have to have memorized, and this table and these numbers are going to be on your test. So we need to remember that squared means it is x times x. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100. Those should be the ones that you know very well. Those should be the ones that are simple, that are easy. These other 10 you're going to have to work on memorizing. We have 121 is 11 squared, 144 is 12, 169, 196, 225, 256, 289, 324, 361, and then finally 400. And those are our perfect squares from 1 to 20. Now we're going to just briefly talk about our cubes, our 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cubes. So for cubed, that means it's x times x times x. These are things that as you get to Algebra 2, as you get to pre-cal and calculus and statistics, you need to know your cubes and your cube roots. So 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 times 2 is going to be 8. And a secret trick is in this column here, we've already done 2 by 2, so we just need to multiply it by 2 again. 9 times 3 is 27. 6 times 4 is 64. 25 times 5 is 125. Times 6 is 216. Times 7 is 343. Times 8 is 512. Times 9 is 729. And then finally times 10 is 1,000. And so those are your square roots to 20 and your your squares to 20 and your cubes to 10. So we're going to quickly go over simplifying square roots, and I'm going to show you a different way than you probably learned last year in algebra. So right now what we're going to look for mostly is we're going to look for that perfect square, because we know that square roots, so the square root of 4, means that we are whatever number I multiply by itself to get to 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. In the same way that 2 squared is 4. So we're looking for those perfect squares so that we can take away the square and just go with the basic number. So we're going to look for perfect squares. If it's a perfect square, we're good to go. Then we're going to see if we can divide it by those perfect squares. So square root of 49, if I go look at my list on the other page, I know the square root of 49 is 7. And so my answer is simply going to be 7. Sometimes we get that lucky. But if we're looking at the square root of 48. So I need to find a perfect square that I can divide it by. So that's where I look at my list. I've got 4, 9, and 16 are going to be the most common ones that we use. So I'm going to go 48, and I'm going to divide it by 4. I get a 1, and I get a 2. So the square root of 4 and the square root of 12 is the same thing as the square root of 48. Because if I multiply 4 times 12, I get 48. But I know I can also pull another 4 out of 12. So if I take 12 and I divide it by 4, I end up with 3. So we have the square root of 4. We know that 12 becomes the square root of 4, and it becomes the square root of 3. And again, what I've written there is the exact same thing as the square root of 48, because 4 times 3 is going to get me the number 48. So I know that the square root of 4 is a perfect square, and so I know that it's 2. Again, same thing. I know that it's 2, so I'm going to put a little multiplication dot there, and then I know that the square root of 3 is as simple as it can be. So my final step is 2 times 2, so I'm going to get 4 in the square root of 3. All right, 57. So I know I can't divide it by 4 because it doesn't end in an even number. I know I can't divide it by 9 because 9 would be 45 or 63. Don't believe that I can multiply it by 16. So the square root of 57 is the simplified I can't spell, sorry guys. Radical. If we cannot find a perfect square that will divide by it, that is our answer. We cannot simplify. All right, so let's look at 112. So again, I'm looking at 4s, I'm looking at 9s, I'm looking at 16. So I'm going to try 16. So 112 divided by 16. I'm going to be honest, it doesn't go into anything evenly, so we're going to go 4. Let's add a 1. So 4 will go into 11 twice, which will leave me with a 3. 4 will go into 32 8 times. So I have the square root of 4, and I have the square root of 28, which equals the square root of 112. Now, 28, I'm pretty sure I can divide by 4 again. 4 divided by 28 is 7. So we have the square root of 4, the square root of 4, and the square root of 7 all equals the square root of 112. So the square root of 4 is 2. Again, the square root of 4 is 2. We put a multiplication dot there, and then I cannot simplify the square root of 7. And so then my final answer is 4 square root of 7. All right, 50. Again, we're looking at 2, or not 2. We're looking at 4, 9, 16, 25. I know that I can divide 50 by 25, and I get the square root of 25, and then I get the square root of 2 is going to equal 50. So I know that the perfect square of 25 is 5. I cannot simplify the square root of 2, and that is my answer. All right, occasionally you're going to get a square root with a number in front. We're just going to ignore that number in front for right now. So we're going to take 108, and again, I'm looking at 4, 9, 16, sometimes 25. So 108 divided by 4, that'll go in twice, 28, that's 27. So square root of 4, square root of 27. Now, 27, I know I can divide by 9, which gets me 3. So square root of 4, 27 becomes the square root of 9, and the square root of 3. So now I'm going to take that 3 that I had at the very beginning, and I'm going to drop it down in front. Then I'm going to carry down the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 9 is 3, and I cannot simplify the square root of 3. So now I'm going to go 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 3 is 18, so my final answer is 18 square root of 3. All right, I want you to try these last 3 on your own and check them with the class notes.